At long last, Election Day is upon us. And while we'll miss the mind-numbingly repetitive attack ads, it's time to vote and decide if we the people want to swap horses midstream or leave Republicans fully at the rudder of the hydrofoil of state. As of this recording, the key Senate races are pulling all over the board. Remember a few weeks ago we told you that Ted Cruz, Joe Manchin, and Bob Menendez had all fended off their challengers? Polling's tightened back up in all of those races, so don't be surprised if one or more of them end up losing. John Tester had looked solid in Montana, but the Libertarian candidate, who polls around 3% like most Libertarians because liberty terrifies people, dropped out of the race and threw his considerable 3% behind Republican challenger Matt Rosendale. So that one's up for grabs. Will that be enough to beat Tester? Look, he's an incumbent who consistently polls under 50%. That's the clearest signal in politics that an incumbent is in real trouble. Net-net, we'll still see a GOP hold in the Senate. The question is, how many votes will they have? It's likely to be between 51 and 53. In the House, movement that we've seen continues to favor Democrats. There's about 30 Republican congressmen who are regretting their decisions to retire. If a bunch of those incumbents had decided to stick it out, the odds of a GOP House would be much higher. But they didn't, and Democrats are taking real advantage of the opening. 538.com continues to pin GOP chances of taking the House at 1 in 7. So they're saying there's a chance. If you joined us last week, you'll recall that we mentioned ballot initiatives in Arkansas and Missouri to increase the minimum wage, and several marijuana legalization ballot measures. I want to talk a little bit more about those. Ballot initiatives have long been a way for populist causes to find their way into law despite inaction by state legislatures. The state of California has elevated the ballot initiative to an art form. Now, you may ask, is there anything inherently bad about voters circumventing the legislature to pass laws? Well, I guess not, but our founders sure thought so. Look, wage levels and corporate profits are the result of complex market dynamics. And whether you think they're fair or not, they have gotten us to this point where no civilization in history has had more people living in more security and comfort. The number of Homo sapiens who have ever lived on this planet that wouldn't immediately trade places with you is a rounding error. It's basically 100%. But if we're going to decide wage levels by plebiscite with simplistic questions like, do you want a raise? The answer will not always be yeah, but hell yeah. Missouri and Arkansas are doing that this year. If you're going to decide limits to corporate profits by popular vote, as, surprise, California is doing with dialysis centers, the answer to, do those greedy corporations make too much money? Again, simplistic question, and the answer will always be hell yeah. I have to believe that over time those distortions will add up. Look, Amazon is advertising for holiday work here in St. Louis starting at $15 an hour. That's because that's what it takes to get them people to go work for them, so the market does respond. Maybe if healthcare facilities' actual costs were more transparent to consumers, not tied up in a morass of regulation and intermediaries, people could make choices about where to access care. There are plenty of other important healthcare ballot initiatives being considered on Election Day. Voters in Idaho, Nebraska, and Utah will vote on Medicaid expansion, something 33 states and the District of Columbia have already done. For most states, Medicaid is one of, if not the largest single expenditure, but how we're going to pay for expanding that coverage is never on the ballot. Free health care is. Alabama and West Virginia are considering abortion restrictions. Meanwhile, Washington State looks to become the first in the nation to pass a carbon tax. Remember last week when we mentioned Missouri's multiple medical marijuana measures? But it's also interesting to see voters in Utah will be considering medical marijuana. And even if it doesn't pass, the Republican governor there says he will call a special legislative session to pass a plan to legalize medical marijuana that's actually endorsed by the LDS Church. Also, North Dakota, that bastion of liberalism, is considering a ballot initiative that would grant expansive rights to individuals for marijuana possession. It's important to note that while so many states race to liberalize their pot possession policies, federal law still prohibits cultivation, sale, and usage of marijuana. Boy, I sound like a real square. But I'm old enough to remember when states acting in contravention of federal law was called nullification. Nullification first threatened, then caused, a civil war. But I guess it's no big deal now, so everything's fine. This has been an especially grumpy video podcast, but nationally we're in an especially grumpy mood. God knows why. Unemployment's low, wages are increasing, and the economy's growing at a rate the last administration said was gone the way of the dodo. Things are really good. We need to celebrate our success and stop trying to kill each other. It's not always going to be this good. I think the next depression starts around the time we Gen Xers reach retirement age, the boomers' last stiletto from beyond the grave. So the whole point of this video series has been to encourage you to vote. So please, go vote. Encourage your friends to vote. Encourage your enemies to vote. Vote with joy. Vote with gratitude for all we have and all who we can be. And smile at the guy with the MAGA hat or the woman with the pink hat. We're all Americans, and believe it or not, we're good people. Whew, that was heavy. And if you made it this far, thanks for watching, and thanks for supporting an AED.